Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. Today's video is going to be episode 4 in my Makeup for Beginners series, and we're going to be talking about how to do eye makeup and also lipstick, because that's kind of like a little bit too simple to have its own video on. So yeah, eye makeup is my favorite type of makeup, or like my favorite area to focus on my face, just because I feel like there's so many options. But today we're just going to be talking about the absolute basics. We're not even going to be using an eyeshadow palette, so that will be in the next video. But let's just go ahead and go over the products we'll be using in today's video. So in episode 1, I talked about my drugstore makeup starter kit, and out of that video, we will be using all of the cheek products that I talked to you guys about. So the bronzer, the blush, and the highlight. We're just going to kind of use these as eyeshadows because it is the most simple way to apply eye makeup. Also, please don't mind my hair. It's a hot mess, but we have a lot we have to do today. We're going to put up our Christmas lights, and I didn't want to wash my hair and then do all of that and then have to wash it again. So yeah, we're just going to have to get over the messy bun. So also from that video, we're going to be using the brow products. These are both from e.l.f. I've got the Wow Brow and the Ultimate Precise Brow Pencil. Do your guys' little baby hairs do this too, where they like curl like that? Like I wish they would just go behind my ear. And then I also have this mascara from Essence. This is the Lash Princess, the Curl and Volume one. And then lastly is just a lipstick. I've got the 2 options that I mentioned, and we'll just pick one of these to use. And then I also have the brushes that are more like the eye brushes, so just the smaller ones from the Shop Miss A kit that we talked about in episode 1. As far as eyeshadow goes, it is, like I said, my favorite step of my makeup routine. However, it can get very, very in-depth, and it can take forever. So I thought that for this episode, for the beginner series, this would be the best way to go. So I'm going to show you how I use my face products to create an eye look. And then in the next episode of this series, well, I think in the next episode, I'm going to do like it all coming together so you can just see like from start to finish. But then in a later episode, we'll get more into eye looks. So the first thing I'm going to use is this bronzer. And like I mentioned with the bronzer, depending on the color that it is, you're either kind of like adding shadows, which by the way, I've done everything up to how we ended the last episode. These will all be linked down below, but I've done all of the makeup that we've already walked through together. So bronzer is used to warm up the face, but also to kind of define your shadows and your features like this right here. So it can also kind of do the same thing in your eye. First, let's just talk about some terms that we use to describe around the eye area, especially when talking about like eyeshadow looks. So if you've ever watched any kind of eyeshadow tutorial, you've probably heard a lot of these words. I'm going to use this brush to kind of like point and show you what I'm talking about, but I don't have any product on it. So the main one I feel like is the crease. And the crease is this area right here in your eye. And how you know what your crease is when you look straight. Now, some people have less of a pronounced crease. I feel like the more hooded your eye is, the more of a crease you have. And the hooded part just means that like when I look straight up, the skin up here kind of folds over where my actual like eyelid is covering my eyeball. So where that crease is the crease of your eye. But if you have larger eyes or you don't really have like the hooded aspect that I do, the crease is just pretty much like if you just feel like this is where my eyeball is, the crease is like right above it where your finger could kind of fit in there. That's the crease. So as far as that goes, we typically put a little bit more of like darker shades in there. You can really amp up the depth of that area by applying shades right here into the crease, which is where we'll apply bronzer in just a minute. The inner corner is of course right here, closest to your nose on either side. The outer corner is here. The brow bone is right here, right underneath your brow. And it's typically mostly talking about the outside area of your brow on either side. But those are kind of like the main things that you will hear. Also, if someone's putting down a transition color, it's typically the area in between your crease and your brow bone. So this area right here is like your transition, because you're going from whatever eye look you've got going on into the rest of your skin tone and your eyebrow. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just do a super simple eyeshadow look. Like I mentioned, I have done my makeup up to the point where we left episode 3, meaning that I do have concealer and powder on my eyelids from doing my face makeup. I'm going to take this fluffy crease brush and I'm just going to pick up some of the bronzer. And then I'm also going to tap my brush off. Let's just get some of the excess powder out of the brush. And then I'm using a mirror in this palette, but I'm not actually like using that palette. I'm just going to lightly, again, hold the brush at the end, and I'm gonna start on the outer part of my crease and just really lightly go back and forth. You can use circular motions, you can just go back and forth. The main thing is that you're not like digging like this, because that's just, you don't want to be harsh with your eye. So it also can cause like those little lines you see here. It's because I pressed really hard, whereas here it's pretty blended out. So you just want to work this all over, and I'm kind of putting this all in the crease, and I'm also going to blend it up, making it my transition color as well. So I have not dipped back into the product, and I did deposit most of the color into the crease. Once I've done that, I bring my brush up towards my brow a little bit. This is just going to give me some definition. So you can see here, it's a little bit darker than on this side. So it just gives you a little bit of depth and dimension to your eyes. And you just keep on blending. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more. I'm gonna tap my brush off every time. I might not say that every time, but I'm going to. And then I'm just gonna keep adding. So I always start right here because personally for my eyes, they're kind of small. So I don't wanna put a lot of dark colors right here, or it's gonna make the eye feel a little bit closed. Whereas if you put deeper colors on the outside and put lighter colors on the inside, it kind of like opens and brightens your eyes a little bit more. And the darker the color, the more it's like a little bit more sunken in, and the brighter lifts it more. So that's kind of why I'm putting the shade where I'm putting it. You can see the more you blend, it just gets rid of any lines where you put that product, and you can just really take your time with this, but once you get the hang of it, it's really quick. So another place I like to put the bronzer or a brown shade if you're using eyeshadow is on the outer corner of my lid. So like I mentioned, the outer corner is going to be here closest to my ear, and I'm just going to put the same color of bronzer here on the outside. Again, it's kind of opening up this part of my eye and tapering it to the outside. This is also referred to as like the outer V, because it is a V shape here and then up into the crease. So sometimes that's mentioned in tutorials on YouTube as well. But that's pretty much all I would do if I was using bronzer. And then you can also do the same thing with your blush. So just using the same brush, you can just pick up some of your blush shade if you want a little bit of pink, and then you can just put it wherever you feel like. And I'm gonna kind of just put it the same place where I put the bronzer, but I just feel like it's a really good way to add some color without buying eyeshadow if you don't know if you like it, or just using less products. So you could just continue, you could put it over the lid if you wanted to, but I would probably avoid putting a deep bronzer on the actual lid, because again, it could potentially close off your eye shape. I'm happy with that. It's just a little bit more of like a pinky brown kind of shade. And then next up would be the highlight. So personally, I do think that eyeshadows do perform better than highlight in the sense of like the shimmer component, because a highlight on your face, you want to kind of look like more like a glow for the most part, versus like a foiled metallic in an eyeshadow where it would show some texture if it were on your cheek. So this is going to create a very subtle everyday look, which is perfect for this video series and also just for everyday, but I'm definitely a fan of some shimmery shades. So my biggest tip with any shimmery shades that you're using on the eye is to use your finger. So pick some up with your ring finger. You want to use your ring finger because you're more likely to apply less pressure to your eye with that. And then I'm just going to pat it on the eyelid. Now, when we use an actual eyeshadow palette, I will show you guys the NYX glitter glue that I mentioned in episode 1. But for this like really subtle look, I feel like you can kind of get away without using it. But if you were to use the glitter glue, it would just make this a little bit more shimmery. And I'm going to put this all over the whole lid. I'm going to pick up that crease brush we were using earlier. I'm not putting anything else on it. And I'm just going to run this like right above where we just put that highlight to just blend it in with the bronzer. It just gets away where you can tell where you put it. And I'll just go back and forth and keep building that up. And then blending off that very edge. So you can see it just added, now I've got some light coming in from my blinds, but you can see here, it just kind of adds the pop where it just makes your eye stand out just a little bit more. I really like the way that looks. If you don't want to use your finger to apply this, you can also use a brush like this. This is called a flat shader brush, and you could just pick up the product with that brush and put it on your eyelid that way. So you could just use like a little bit of a sweeping motion on the eyelid like this. So I think for every day and for the purpose of using your cheek products on your eyes, this is kind of where I would leave it. And the only other thing that I would do is actually put the highlight on your brow bone as well. And it can just kind of bring out that feature. So for that, I'd probably use a brush. I don't usually use my finger for this. So again, I'm going to use that flat shader brush, and I'm just going to put this right here underneath my brow. I usually put it right where the arch is and then drag it out just a little bit towards the tail end of the brow. I don't really put it here ever. I don't really know why, but just kind of want to like give a little bit of like a lifted brow effect. So let's go ahead and do the same thing to the other eye. So again, I'm just going to use the crease brush and the bronzer, tapping it off because this one's very powdery. And I'm going to start on this outer part of that crease area, which again is where that little fold is in my eye. And I'm not using a ton of pressure. I'm just going to use sweeping motions back and forth. And then once there's less product, I'm going to pull it up towards my brow to help blend it into my skin color. This same idea will apply to you no matter what your skin tone is or what your bronzer shade is, because the bronzer is going to be a little bit deeper than your skin tone. So the comparison of the bronzer with your skin tone should still blend pretty easily. I'm just going to get a little bit more of that and make it slightly deeper. And do the same thing. And then again, I'm going to put it right here on the outer part of my eyelid. Another term that people say a lot is your lash line, which is just the line right here where your eyelashes start. And again, I'm going to add some blush too. This blush is not very pigmented, so it doesn't change the look a whole lot. It just adds a little bit of pink to it. And then lastly is going to be that highlight, which I'm going to pick up on my ring finger. And I'm just going to pat this onto the lid. You could also leave the highlight step off and just put that bronzer in your crease. It will help your concealer from creasing or showing a line on your lid by setting it. And it will again add some of that depth and dimension. And I'm going back and forth with that crease brush and the shimmer shade. So for an everyday look, I feel like this is really approachable and really easy to achieve. I'm going to leave it at that. Another tip to add in here is that if you're using something that has a lot of fallout, meaning you apply shimmer shade and some of the little sparkles come out onto your cheeks, you can use your powder brush and just kind of sweep it away. But for me, at least, if I'm doing a complicated eye look, I just do my eye makeup first and then my face makeup. But for this like everyday thing, I think it's totally fine to do your face makeup first and then the eyeshadow. All right, next up, let's talk about brows. I've got this e.l.f. Ultra Precise brow pencil, and it does have a spoolie on the end. And then on the other end, it's just this really skinny brow pencil. Everyone's brows are different. If our brows look totally different and the format or the style that I use to fill them in is totally different, then I would just suggest looking up a brow tutorial and choosing someone who has similar brows to you and that you like how they make their brows look, and then go from there. But I'm just going to show you like a pretty general way to fill in your brows. I like a more natural look, but I do like to fill it in a little bit as well as in the front here. So I'm just going to show you what I do. The first thing is I use a spoolie and I go through my brows. I just kind of brush through them. I comb them up and over at a little bit of an angle for the first part, and then when I get to the tail, I will do that, but I also just kind of drag them down. That's just the way that I like my brow hairs to lay. And I brush through them first so that I can see which areas are sparse and where I want to fill them in. It helps a little bit. I just got my eyebrows threaded last weekend, so they don't look as rough as they usually do. But now that I've brushed through them, I'm going to flip over and use this. Again, I'm not using a ton of pressure because if you use a lot of pressure, the line is just going to be a lot deeper and just not look very natural. But you can also just use lighter strokes like this and they'll look more like actual hairs. I'm not perfect at doing brows either. This is just how I do them. So I am going to start by just following the same angle that I was brushing those hairs in. And I never start in the beginning. I start about this far in, work my way out, and then I come back and do the middle part. I do that so I can just gauge how much color I've deposited into them. I just use small hair-like strokes, meaning I am just dragging it length of like one hair. And then I start over again. So like that is one stroke. And I'm just going to keep on doing that. You can also kind of guide the line on the bottom if you want to. Like I said, I got my eyebrows threaded recently, so that helps for sure. And then on this outer part, I do the same small strokes, but I'm dragging them downwards. And I'm not using a lot of pressure at all. I typically will leave it at this, catch the other eye up, and then we'll adjust and do the middle part. So again, here I've already combed through them, so I'm going to start about here, work my way out, and then we'll come back to the middle part. So I'm just doing hair-like strokes, following the same angle that I brushed my brow hairs. On this one, I want a little bit more color here, so I'm going to use a little bit more pressure on that arch because it's a little bit more sparse than my left brow. I also only have the brow product out a little bit so that if I use a little bit more pressure, it's not going to break it. And then I'm going to follow again this line. I'm actually going to draw this one out a little bit longer because this brow is longer. So I want to match this one to my other one. Okay, so they're about the same length, I think. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to take the spoolie one more time and brush through them just to be sure I didn't miss any spots. I'm going to put the product out just a little bit more and hold it farther back because I really don't want dark lines on the center here, but I like my eyebrows to start a little bit more like right here and right here because they kind of start like farther out, especially this one. So on this one, I'm just going to make these tiny little lines. Again, I'm not using a lot of pressure at all, but that just kind of fills them in a little bit. I'm gonna run my finger along the top because one of those I think was a little long. And then the same thing on this side. These lines are going a little bit more straight up, but I'm still angling them slightly like the other ones. I'm going to lightly drag this to create that line. And then I'm going to continue with the small hairs. Okay, so that looks about how I want them to look. They do have that kind of blocky shape, so my favorite thing to do is just, again, to go over it with a spoolie. And every single day I use my brow marker versus this kind of brow style, but I do think for beginners this is the easiest way to learn because it's just there's less of a learning curve, I feel like. So this is a pretty good affordable brow pen. Now that I've used the spoolie, I can see a couple little sparse areas, meaning that there's no hair. So I'm just gonna fill those in, add a couple more. So that's about how I want them to look. Now that I've worked so hard on my brows, I want to set them in place. So I'm going to use this Wow Brow from e.l.f. You could also use a clear brow gel. I'm just going to brush through my brows just like I did with the spoolie. I'm using a very light hand though, because I don't want a ton of product on them. I'm just brushing them the exact same way with that little bit of an angle to it. And a product like this will just help them stay in place for the rest of the day. Well, we're a little up close and personal. Let's go ahead and do mascara. So let me get my eyelash curler. I forgot to mention that in the beginning of the video. So this is the $4 eyelash curler from e.l.f. Be very careful when you use this. You don't want to pinch your eye, but some people really like how this makes your lashes look. So when you apply mascara, if your lashes are curled, it will help the mascara look a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more lengthened, because if your lashes go a little bit more straight out, then it would be hard to notice that. So I'm just going to show you how to use this. I think I'm going to do one eye curled and one eye not. My lashes naturally do curl up a little bit, so I honestly don't use this every day. I probably use an eyelash curler like 1 to 3 times a week, but I will show you how to use it. So you want to put your lashes here in this spot, because when you pinch, then that's what's curling the lashes upwards. So you want to be really careful because you don't want to pinch your eyelid. I'm just going to put my lashes here, and then I'm going to rest this part on that lash line that we talked about. So I'm just making sure that I've got it lined up. I'm going to do a very small pinch to make sure I don't have my eyelid, which I don't. And then I like to do like kind of pulsing pinches. So that's really not long enough. You want to like continue to squeeze. So you can see here the difference. Sorry about the light coming in, but you can see here they're just like up a little bit more, and this one's a little bit more straight out and less noticeable. So it just helps the mascara go on a little bit differently. So with mascara, the most important thing is just don't stab yourself in the eye. I like to look down when I'm putting mascara on so I can really see my lashes, and I don't want my lashes to touch my eye. What was that word? I just totally blanked. I don't want my eyelashes to touch my eyelid when I'm putting this on either, or else it's just a mess. So I like to look down. So I've just got my mirror down below my eye. I like to blink into the mascara wand. It just helps coat the lashes, and you can also start at the very root of them, kind of wiggle a little bit. I honestly do a little bit differently per mascara wand, just whatever feels like it's coating them the best. But for now, I feel like that's a good coat. I like to do 2 to 3 coats. So that would be one. I go over to the other side and do the other one, come back, and keep going back and forth. I don't have a lot of tips and tricks for mascara, so I'm just mostly showing you. So that I feel like if I don't have a lot of tips, then hopefully seeing me would help. So I'm going back over to the other eye. And again, I'm just blinking a lot. And on purpose, I'm going to try and get some on my eyelid just so I can show you how to get it off. So you can see I got little black dots there. I didn't get a ton on there, but like, just put some there. Okay. I put some mascara on my eyelid just to show you. Sometimes that happens. It actually happens a lot. I'm just going to leave it if that happens. Let it completely dry, and we'll come back to it. So I feel like my lashes don't make that big of a difference when I curl them. Maybe just like a tiny bit, but some people it does make a really big difference. I did want to show you that. Again, I'm just going to leave this and let it dry. So let's go ahead and do the lower lashes. For this, I just tilt my head down, and I barely put any on the lower lashes. I even got a little bit too much on that one, so I just put enough on the lower lashes to give them a color. and that's it. Another thing you can do is use that highlight that we used earlier, put it on the inner corner, and it can just help the eye pop. Not everyone likes this, but you can just kind of see the difference here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on both eyes. And then we can even go ahead and put the lip color on, and we'll come back to the mascara mess. So like I said, I've got two options. I'm going to use the NYX Thalia one because I like the color of it and I'm kind of in the mood for a more cool tone option. So I feel like lipstick is the most self-explanatory thing ever, but I just follow the lines of my lips. I do not overline very often, so I think the only lipstick tip that I have is that if you want to avoid getting lipstick on your teeth like I just did, you can get a tissue or something, wrap it around your finger, and just do like that. And that will get the most inner part of the lipstick off of your mouth and put it on the tissue, so that can really help. It's not the most flattering thing to do, but it does really work, and it helps to not get the lipstick on your teeth. So all right, so the mascara that's on my eyelid is dry, so let's go over how to remove it. You either want to use a very dense eyeshadow brush like this one, or like this pencil brush. This one has some shadow in it, so I'm not going to use it. You just want to use one that's clean, or use your spoolie. And if you use your spoolie, just make sure that you get the pigment out of it. So I will show you that now. And you can just take it and go back and forth very lightly where that mascara is at, and it will take it off. It's not always perfect. If you get like a ton on there or something, you might be able to see it just a little bit, but the key here is to let it dry. If you don't, it will smudge everywhere. And you can do the same thing with that dense brush, is just to go back and forth over it very lightly. The last thing I would do is just pick up on your crease brush again, a little bit of that bronzer, and I would go right over it just to cover it up even more. So that's how you remove mascara off of your eyelid. But that's it for episode 4 of Makeup for Beginners on my channel, and I feel like this is the complete look. The only thing now would be to add the setting spray, and that's it. So I guess we can go ahead and do that. So you just, again, want to like tuck your lips in and close your eyes. And you could go over this with your sponge if you wanted to, that you used with your foundation. But that is the full face of everyday, like super simple makeup. So in the next episode, we will be putting all of it together, and I'm excited for that because these videos have been really long individually. So we can just kind of go through and a little bit quicker put everything on, so you can see like it doesn't actually take this long to do this makeup. But I just wanted to share with you the tips that I had. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you're looking forward to the rest of this makeup series, then be sure to be subscribed to my channel. And if you like today's video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!